Hello, so today's going to be another VOD review game. This game I'm going to be going over Tristana Reroll. If you've never seen Tristana Reroll, it's very strong if you have an early Tristana. I'm not sure how good my spot is, particularly in this game, but I did want to try it out. So that's what we end up doing today. If you like my content, make sure to like and subscribe. Today's also the last day you can enter the giveaway. So for subscribers, if you subscribe to my channel, join the Discord. There is a TFT giveaway channel, and if you enter that, it's going to be drawn, I think, tomorrow morning or something. And that's for like 1,000 RP. So if you want that, that's just because we reached our subscriber goal of 1,000, and then we're going to set up a new subscriber goal once I pay out the winner. But here, basically, I'm playing around Tristana. I take Shimmer Scale Essence. I'm just looking for something to maybe get my econ generating a little bit more. I have this early Tristana. I'm not sure if I'm going to strictly play towards Tristana, but judging from my openers, like the items that I have, I look at it and I think to myself, okay, Shimmer Scale, I can play with a Gold Collector, and then I can play some sort of AD line because I have an Even Shroud to start. Even Shroud basically reduces armor, so it works really well to synergize with this particular board. So I'm like, okay, this seems like an opener that I can play around. I feel pretty comfortable with this, so let's just go for playing towards AD line. Whenever you play Tristana, if you haven't seen the board already, the main way that people play it now is one of two ways. The main way that you do it, I'm just pulling up the team builder 1 second. The main way that you play around is usually you have to start with a Tristana, and you play Vertical Artillerist. Now, Artillerist got a couple buffs, Quirky, as well as like the Artillerist trait got some buffs. But the idea is that when you're playing for Artillerist, you basically get a bunch of AD. Right, Artillerists every 5 attacks, they do like this extra rocket, and with 4 Artillerists, you have like a good potential to basically like one shot or do a bunch of damage. So when you think about Tristana, a lot of times you're rerolling Tristana and Urgot. If you look at this board, it's basically just 4 units. But usually what people do now is they play it with Sentinels. Now there's different ways to cap it out with Sentinels. Of course, with Ezreal, whenever you see an Ezreal on a board, you might think about Academy, especially with Sentinels. So one way that I see people play it is something that looks along the lines of this. Right, basically you make a front line of 4 Sentinels. Ezreal gives Rebel, which helps out your whole board. It helps out your front line a little bit because it gives some HP to both Alawi and Irelia. Just like all the Rebels, if you have Rebel active, they gain 12% max health, so that helps out with your front line. Also, because you're playing Leona and Rel, you also have many potential options of 3-starring both the Leona and the Rel. Rel's pretty commonly taken for Renata reroll, if you've probably seen those in your lobbies, so often it's hard to 3-star the Rel, but you can also stabilize around a 3-star Leona, which gives you a good option. Additionally, if the Academy item is good, a way to cap out this board really high is that you can then, on level 9, play a Jace. The Jace gives you the Crystal, which you can then use to either buff your backline or your front line, and also gives you Academy, which gives you an extra Academy item, either a frontline item for Leona or a backline item for Ezreal. Obviously, the highest cap is if you have something like Prismatic Tiki, you can just 3-star everybody, but a lot of times I end up with 3-star Urgot as well as 3-star Tristana. Now, Tristana's ability, basically she launches a Cannonball, and then when she kills somebody with her ult, specifically with her ult, then she will gain attack damage, right? So this scales her up. It's not the biggest deal in the world because she does get a lot of AD from Artillerists, but basically if you're building around a Tristana that's going to have a bunch of attack damage, you want to put items on her that can make use of that attack damage and scale it in a different way. So a lot of times I think the better items on her in general right now, I think is something like, where is it? You almost always put IE on Tristana, because basically if you have a bunch of AD and then you can crit your ult, it not only helps you to kill with your ult, but the crit damage with the AD makes it so you have a massive amount of damage, right? It scales you up very effectively. Additionally, you probably want to have damage amp. A lot of times I see either Giant Slayer or some other type of build on her. I think Giant Slayer is pretty good. But often you'll also see Gunblade do really well. Because Tristana does so much damage, she can actually sustain the front line very effectively if you put Gunblade on her. In this case, I have a Gold Collector, so my build's going to be a little bit different. Instead of trying to build like extra damage amp, I just want to make sure that I 100% crit, and I try and one-shot the unit with the crit and a massive amount of AD from scaling. So I'm probably going to do something along the lines of Gold Collector with IE is what I really want to do. Let me just find it. Gold Collector. Right, and then it generates money that helps me to hit my reroll board. The key is to have Tristana early so you can get those early stacks. Also, when she kills somebody with her ult, there's also like an overkill spill off where the damage then hits another unit. So she's very good at deleting the backline. A lot of times, like I think the general build is like a lot of times people put Guinsoo. I don't think Guinsoo is particularly strong because late game she doesn't ramp up the Guinsoo fast enough for it to actually make effectively that much of a difference, right? You don't stack the Guinsoo as much as giving her like an attack speed item in the first place. But either way, a lot of times you can build something like this. Now, Gold Collector will also look really good on Tristana. If you saw in my guide, it's really good on Tristana, but I feel like that's a little bit because of the Artillerist trait. Artillerist gives a bunch of AD, but additionally, there is an Artillerist specific augment that I was mentioning, which is going to be featured in this video. I forget what it's called. Artillerist Rocket Collection. So Artillerist rockets deal 15% increased damage. That's like after every 5 attacks, they do a rocket that does 125% of their AD. Every 75 rockets your Artillerist fire, gain a collector. So this is a gold collector, max 2. Then you gain a Tristana and Urgot. So Rocket Collection is actually very, very powerful because all these units that have a bunch of base AD, giving them an execute on top of that, gives you a high probability of killing units. It's one of Corki's best items. I think Corki is one of the best users of Gold Collector, and I think that because this augment, it just seems very broken. It just gives you an Orn artifact if you kill a bunch of units. You're almost always cashing out at least 2 if you can make it to late game, like if your spot is actually good. So a lot of times you have 2 Gold Collectors for a gold augment, and you can put them on units that actually can use them. So I think it skews the stats a little bit, especially the Orn artifact stats, saying that's really, really good. But just because the augment is just crazy. It gives you 2 whole ass Orn artifacts for just playing the game. You know what I mean? And also increases their damage. So if your spot is good for it, if you're already rerolling Tristana, that's like a must. I don't know if you can hard force towards it with that particular augment, but you have to just be prepared for it. If we look here, basically that's exactly what I did. I said, okay, I have Gold Collector, I'm going to make IE, I'm going to try and kill things. I've been losing a couple rounds, so I'm not getting the maximum stacks that I could be getting right now, but I am Tristana paired, I have my items, and then you can see when I kill, there's an execute, and then with that, there's also the ricochet that happens afterwards. I end up 5 lossing on my early stage, that's fine. As long as you're killing units and you're getting some Tristana stacks, it's pretty good. Tristana does ramp up pretty fast in terms of her ability to kill units, so you don't have to worry too much about having it like set up on stage 2, but your spot has to be really good for this comp. I tried it out a couple times. I think one time went bot 4, 2 times I went top 4. I'm trying to experiment with some of these other AD comps because I find that with the current patch, I'm very lost when it comes to playing around AD item openers because all the comps feel very conditional is what I would say. Like, you know, if you try and play around Twitch or Corki or Emissary or Tristana, it feels like you need things to go right a certain amount. There's a lot less fallback options, right? The things that are good for some units aren't good for other units. But I digress. Here, we do have some Sentinel frontline. Singe does give some attack speed to Tristana. I get a bow here. I'm going to decide I probably want to make a bow item on Tristana just because it's really effective early game. It's just not that good late game. I can also because I already made even shot, I don't have to make Last Whisper. A really good pairing is IE with Last Whisper because they're both crit glove items, so it raises that crit chance to make sure that it works out really well for you. Here, I'm just level 5. I'm trying to like bide my time, figure out exactly what I'm going to play and how I'm going to play it. But early even shroud slam, so I don't have to worry about making a Last Whisper, and then I have a bow to play around. Because I'm playing AD, I don't necessarily have to use this tier to make anything in particular, but I probably want to slam some sort of item. Protector's Vow is a pretty alright item to slam. Usually like a tier is very sacred, but that's usually if you're playing like an AP line. Because I'm playing AD, I don't really care about having a tier. It doesn't really turn into any good item. Maybe like a Hodge for Urgot, like a Hand of Justice. But tier as a frontline item is really good. So I like Protector's Vow. It gives a health shield to one of my frontline units. So I think it gives me some survivability that allows this Tristana to get some casts off to kill some units. So once we hit Tristana 2, though, things will change a lot. Usually Tristana 1 isn't really killing anything. Tristana 2 is where you get the big bump and everything. Here I got Rocket Collection Plus. So because Rocket Collection Plus, it's not every 75 rockets, every 65 rockets. So it's even better. So I get it on stage 2. It's just an instant click. Not only does it upgrade my Tristana to a Tristana 2, it also gives you the potential to cash out extra gold collectors. Now you can cash out 2 gold collectors from the augment. So I already have 1 gold collector. Basically, I'm going to get 2 more. So I'm going to have 3 gold collectors. Basically, I'm getting the augment. The way it works is like if you're already playing Artillerist and you're killing a bunch of units. Well, the way it works is like when you fire a rocket. So it's like every 5 autos, you fire the rocket or whatever it is. So it's the amount of rockets that you fire. So it's a little bit different than like actually killing units. But either way, the idea is that if I'm playing around this Tristana unit, I'm just going to use this to scale up everybody. Then I can get Gold Collector on Corki. Corki Gold Collector is really good because he hits the back line. He basically shoots like all those little like mini barrage of rockets that can hit everybody, and each of those has the potential to execute, so it's really good at finishing off units. Additionally, I can put on Urgot. Urgot has a little bit of like an AoE, like he hits multiple units occasionally. Or I can even put on Ezreal, which just does like large burst damage. Because it works really well. I think this augment's pretty broken. They nerfed it already, so I'm not sure exactly the placement of it. This is the first time I tried it, and over the course of this game, I felt like it was really good. Of course, your own experiences might be different than mine. I wouldn't necessarily force towards this comp unless you have a good opener for it. At least for me, the way I was thinking about it is that I took Gold Collector, I took IE, and I put this Tristana in. I wasn't hard committed towards the Tristana until now. I wasn't necessarily going to roll for it. In my head, I was thinking, you know, if I really have to and I find myself in a Twitch spot by some conditions, I can maybe play towards Twitch with these same items. Also, IE Gold Collector is a very good pairing on Corki. So even without reroll Tristana, I can then level and play around Corki, which is another AD unit. And then I can find some way of building that board, either Corki carry with a similar setup as I have right now, or I can play Corki in an emissary line if I end up hitting a econ augment that makes me very rich. Gold Collector works out really well for that because it technically is like a mini econ augment. It gives you a bit of gold here and there if you actually become strong enough to cash it out. Right now, we're at the point where Tristana is starting to get strong enough to kill units. As you can see, this round, I basically farmed this guy for like 5 or 6 gold. 7 maybe. That's the glory of Tristana. You just have to get to that spot. So my round 2 was a bit shaky. Beginning of stage 3 was a bit shaky, right? I think we can all agree, like you look at it and you see Tristana lose streak and you're like, that's not too good. There's a certain point where you start to pop off, right? If you match that point where you pop off with the point that everybody else is still not fully on board yet, then the Tristana is going to get those killed. She's going to ramp up and she's going to keep up, right? The Tristana has to keep up because at one point the damage is going to fall off and then she won't be able to keep up anymore. So that's what I mean, that you have to have a good spot for. You can't just like decide in the middle of your game that you're going to play Tristana. A lot of times it's like, if you have a Tristana in your opener, maybe keep this line open if you really want to. Here there's a Twitch. I already took the Artillerist emblem. Sorry, not the Artillerist emblem. I already took the Artillerist augment, so I'm definitely going to be playing towards Artillerist, so I don't have to worry about Twitch anymore. And I'm also going to dedicate myself to reroll. If you look, it's kind of funny. I was saying I'm maybe open to Twitch if I high roll into a Twitch spot. I just rolled past 2 Twitches. Now, I think you could technically pivot. There is like a Twitch with a Corki line that you can play sometimes, especially if you don't have a Bruiser emblem. You kind of play like a little bit of like scrap with Twitch and Corki and like something like weird like that. I've seen it before, but I don't have. I'm just all in on this Tristana reroll right now. When you reroll, like I said, you can go for Leona 3, you can go for Rel 3 as well. You usually need to have at least one frontline unit 3-starred because the Tristana takes a little bit of time to like kill. She's single target, but if she kills a unit, then it spreads the overkill damage onto other units. But you can see how sometimes, like in this case, for example, look, she's getting stuck on the Garen. So it becomes a little bit awkward. There we go, we get, and also she only scales up not by kill, she scales by ult kill only. So you really want the ult to be the thing that kills the unit, which is why IE is usually pretty good on her. Of course, like other damage amp things are also very good. The main thing you don't want is usually flat AD. Like Deathblade is still good on Tristana, I think, in the stats, but that's not because it gives AD, it's because Deathblade also has damage amp. But typically you're not trying to make like, you want to have like crit or you want to have damage amp because you already have so much base AD. So it's like diminishing returns. You want to like make sure that it's like very strong. So like that also applies to Anomaly, right? Sometimes with Tristana you might want to take like, I'll just take like extra AD. She not only scales AD, she also has Artillery, so it gives her a bunch of AD. A lot of times if you're looking for an Anomaly on Tristana, it's usually going to be like damage amp or something like that. So just be aware of that. Coming up a little bit later. I said I was going to do a guide today on items. I didn't do it because I got tilted while streaming TFT, and I was trying to play as much games as possible because I wanted to try and recover a little bit of Elo, because like I'm trying to keep up with where my rank should be, because the lobbies I'm playing in are with people that I think are just not up to par in terms of like knowing how to play. Not to be offensive to those players, just like I'm seeing mistakes that people are making, and I'm like, I want to rank up really badly so that I can like be in a lobby where I feel like I'm improving. So I end up doing that, and then I didn't have time to do the video for today. Tomorrow will be the guide on items. That's all to say. Obviously, don't spread hate or anything. Even if I'm angry on stream, it's usually because I'm like in the middle of a stressful situation of playing the game. But you know, now I've cooled down. I don't really care anymore. It's all fine. Everything's good. But I'm probably gonna have to play offline and try and get to Masters before it's too late. And then I'm gonna be like hard stuck with like, I'm gonna have to like play like the poker table when everybody's all in. You know what I mean? Have you guys ever played poker at a higher level? Like not just like with like friends or like with like for real money. You know what I mean? Like when you play poker for real money, it really changes the way like you like I don't know how to describe it. Like, you know, sometimes you're playing poker and like there's poker where it's gambling and then there's poker where you're playing. Do you know what I mean? That's what it feels like right now. I don't know if that's a good explanation. Anyways, I'm rolling for this Tristana. I kind of high roll. I hit this Tristana really early, but I also found 2 Alawis. So I think I'm just going to level here. Like I said before, you just want to go for a 3-star 2 cost. But instead you want to, in this case, because I high rolled the Tristana, it doesn't make sense to stay at a low level. I'd rather push levels and get some of those higher synergies like 4 Artillerist. Because I have 2 copies of Alawi, there's a high chance that if I just push levels, I can probably hit Alawi 2. And then I can use Alawi 2 as my main tank, which should be around equivalent to like a Leona or a Rel 3 approximately in terms of how much damage she can block, because Alawi is a really good tank. Anyways, what I was saying with poker is like, with poker there is sometimes you play poker and like, you know, like if so, like imagine if you're playing poker and every single time you play poker there's some dude that's always going all in, right? That's like a strategy in poker, but it's not like a good one. You know, like I'm gonna bluff, I'm just gonna all in. It's like that doesn't work in like you know, like that doesn't work all the time. But like if you're somebody who's trying to play, you have to call the bluff, right? So if you call the bluff and then you're wrong, then you just lose on the spot and it's just really bad. So what ends up happening is you usually just have to fold every single hand until you have a good hand, and it's very unfun. You basically just like never play for anything. You always just do the safest option every single time, and then but when you finally have a good hand is the only time that you play the game. That's kind of how it feels right now in ranked for me, at least. It's like every time I try and do something that's like a little bit of a narrower idea that I think I have a really good spot for, it gets like completely blown out and it's like, okay, this is really bad. Right? It's why like if you ever watch like creator poker tournaments, it's why like you see in creator poker tournaments there's like a huge disjoint in terms of like betting and representing hands. And like somebody will look at a hand and be like, you weren't even bluffing to represent the right hand, you were bluffing to represent a different hand. And then the other person is like, what are you talking about? It's like similar to that, how it feels. Like I can't get a read on what I'm supposed to do because like out of nowhere I just get like pivoted on by like 3 different people, and it's like, oh, okay, my bad. It's like I thought I was in the clear, but I guess not. That's what I mean. So that's just to say, if you're around on my streams, I just don't want you guys to like, you know, I don't like to spread hate, and I don't want people to be upset when they're watching my streams. But that being said, augment wise, I took Mace's Will just to give me some extra crit chance. It basically guarantees my Tristana has 100% crit, so I'm always getting maximum value off of her ult. As you can see, I'm winning most of these rounds. Once you get Tristana 3, she is online. I am rolling still on level 6. I know I said that I might just level for this Alawi. I did forget while I was saying that I have the Artillerist emblem. So I want I'm incentivized to roll on level 6, excuse me, because if I get Urgot 3, I'm also capable of putting the gold collector on the Urgot, because I'm going to cash out this gold collector soon. Remember my augment, after 65 rockets, I get a gold collector, and that happens twice. So I can put gold collector on Urgot, which will make me really happy. Here I make QSS because it's like a glove item, which helps bring up my crit chance for Urgot, so that his autos are a little bit powerful. And it also gives me the potential to give him, like, it gives attack speed, which works out really well with Urgot's kit. So I think it's an okay item on him. Here I'm looking at rocket collection. As you can see, I'm at 58 rockets fired, so I just need to get to 65, and then I get a gold collector. And that's going to be a pretty big spike because gold collector is pretty good on all of these units. Give them an execute as well as a bunch of crit chance is very, very strong because of the artillerist trait that gives a bunch of AD. So it actually synergizes very, very well with the trait. I think it's a very fun augment. It used to be giga broken. Now that they nerfed it, I don't know. I haven't seen it enough to give you guys a proper opinion on whether or not it's really, really good. Like if it's a hard forcing towards this type of board. I would always suggest not to hard force towards a towards a board unless you're certain that it's really, really strong. But in this case, you should just be a little bit careful. Here I'm just holding on to Rels and Leonas. There is a guy playing Renata Reroll, so I might never be able to hit Rel or Leona 3. But it does help to gather a couple copies of them. Here I hit Alawi 2, which I don't even know how. I take Tier to make Hodge for Urgot because my last item is going to be the Gold Collector. And here I just level to put in Rebel. As you can see, like I said before, if I hit Alawi 2, which I just hit Alawi 2 on like level 6, by the way. So this game is already very, very high roll. A lot of times you'd be a lot less stable because if you don't have Rel 3, Leona 3, you'd often be unable to make it to a point where you can play around having a decent front line, right? Because Urgot isn't particularly tanky, but Alawi 2 is definitely tanky, right? I think maybe Rel 3 is a little bit tankier than Alawi 2, excuse me, but this Alawi unit just doesn't die. But anyways, anybody who has unupgraded units, this comp really punishes you if you don't have upgrades. Because basically anybody that can get one-shot by Tristana is just instantly one-shot by Tristana. Even the overkill damage can one-shot a lot of backline units, which is really, really massive. So this comp is very, very steamrolly because you also just continue to stockpile and just do way, way, way more damage. Here, Dragon Soul I thought might be good, so that's pretty good. I don't need more AD. On death is kind of like okay. This one is kind of weird. This one isn't the best anomaly I can take because I don't need more attack damage, right? I already have so much attack damage on this Tristana, but it's kind of synergized with my whole kit because it's every 3 times they attack, it gives the rest of my board extra AD. Because I'm playing so many artillerists, it kind of just feels like really good value because my Tristana is attacking pretty fast because I have Gwitsu on her. So that's why I took this anomaly. It's not the best anomaly. What I really would have liked is something that gave me damage amp, right? Damage amp or something for frontline would have been fine. Getting like 20% more AD is kind of meaningless because I have so much AD already, especially when I go to 4 artillerist. So it is what it is. It's fine. It's not the best, but it's all right. Here I got my gold collector as of last turn, so I put gold collector on Urgot. Sets me up really nicely to get like multiple executes. The Urgot can kill steal the Tristana, which is a little bit unfortunate, but we're at a point in the game where we don't care too much about stacking the Tristana anymore. We just care more about just like making sure we win the rounds. Funny thing, visually, Tristana is really fun because as you can see, her ult gets bigger and bigger. I'm sure you've noticed it from the start of the game until now. Based on how much AD she scales up, her ult gets bigger and bigger and bigger, which is really funny and comical. I think they actually, at one point, I think it was out of PBE into live, they decreased the size of the scaling because people were complaining that it was looking a little bit too much, like it was covering too much of the screen. So that's really funny. But I find it really, like, I really like this Tristana unit. I wish, I think a lot of people used to hard force towards Tristana all the time. I remember, I was listening to some opinions on the patch before Macau and what people were thinking of doing based on like their read on the patch. And there's actually quite a few top level players that were saying to just hard force Tristana every game. I don't think it worked out. Like I think when the tournament actually happened, that wasn't a viable strategy. So I can't recommend it. But this Tristana comp, like if you play towards it like this, it is very, very strong. Additionally, there's another variation of this comp that is very strong, by the way. The other option is that you play Vertical Emissary. I'll show it right here. Give me a second. So Tristana is an Emissary unit, and it can be either activated as 1 or 4 Emissary. There is another option where you play Vertical Emissary with like an extra frontline unit. So for example, it looks vaguely like this, except you play an extra frontline unit. Right? You just play all the Emissary units and 4 Artillerist. Right now, there is like a quirky Artillerist line with Emissary, but usually you play other units. Like you need a lot more frontline. So typically here you're required to play like, you know, a couple extra frontline units. This is very high roll because it's hard to get to this board state because you're rolling for Tristana and then you have to like somehow skip to level 8 and then also roll to upgrade Mbessa, Garen, because those are going to be mostly your frontline with the Urgot. So it's very, very difficult. So I wouldn't recommend playing towards the Emissary. If you're playing Tristana reroll, what I'm trying to say is that you might think that it's really good to play Emissary. I would recommend to play it like this, where you play 4 Sentinel, 4 Artillerist. I think it's a lot more stable. Anyways, as I'm sitting around here, I found a Warwick, if you haven't noticed. So that's a Warwick for me. Finally, I get a little bit of a high roll. So that's fine. I don't think I can put Warwick in just yet because I have the Sentinels. Warwick is very strong, but I really want the front line to be stable here. So I'd much rather just play towards 4 Artillerists, and then Warwick will be my next in. So remember I was saying before, you can cap out really high around Academy if you find a Jace later. I think my Academy item is an AP item. It's something like a static Shiv, so it's not very useful. So what I could cap out with is just playing a Warwick or any other 6 cost later in the game, which is totally fine. This is the Renata reroller, so this guy's really scary. I'm kind of low-key, like, I'm kind of griefing his Rells. Not on purpose, though. It's just because it's very valuable for me as well. Right? Like, Rel 3 is a massive spike for my board. So there's no incentive for me to sell it here necessarily. I could choose not to, but it's fine. Like, I'm holding them because I found them. I'm not strictly rolling to make sure that this guy doesn't hit, if that makes sense. So it's a little bit awkward. Also, I didn't mention, you've probably been seeing a lot of loot when I'm killing units and stuff. I didn't mention it at the start of this game. One of the reasons why I was leaning towards Tristana reroll is because it is Warwick's encounter. So it's Warwick encounter, so everybody's just getting a bunch of gold. So yeah. Every kill that you get gold. Here I just level for the Warwick because I'm totally down for that. I'm trying to put items on Warwick here because I don't think that matters that much to put the items on a Corki 1, for example. But I didn't mention, it's Warwick encounter, which means everybody has spoils of war. So that means that when you kill a unit, you have the chance of loot. That's how I've been getting components and extra gold. It's not from the gold collector. The gold collector gives some gold, but every kill also gives the Warwick encounter gold, which is really important. Here I level. I do lose this round. I'm losing a couple rounds here, mostly because my front line isn't good. If they have backline access and Tristana dies, Tristana is quite slow in attacking. The reason is that she's single target, right? If you're not one-shotting every unit, it's really bad. So, for example, with Rebels there, everybody has a bunch of extra HP because Rebel just gives extra HP. So it's very hard for my Tristana to one-shot everybody. So because my Tristana is not one-shotting everybody, she's spending like multiple ults on the same unit, which is really, really hurting my chances of winning the round. Of course, the Tristana will continue to scale, right? This is a scaling comp. Tristana does scale her AD, so she's not one-shotting them now. If we wait a couple turns, she will one-shot them eventually, which is very, very important to note. Here I'm just rolling a little bit. I'm trying to figure out somebody that I can play. I would ideally like to play this Rumble over somebody. I decided to just drop the Rel, because like I could still play Jace and give myself Academy bonus, so I don't want to drop the Leona. I just dropped the Rel because I figure I'm not going to hit the Rel anyways. Here I'm going to put some items on everybody. I get scrap in as well, which gives me a bit of a scrap shield, so I'm pretty happy with that. And then we'll see how exactly we can cap out this board. My Tristana, as you can see, her ult is getting bigger. This guy, as much as he's Kog'Maw, I think I have too much damage to chew, so I chew through his front line too fast. Even though he's like multiple automata, I think he's 4 automata, or he's 6 automata, I think. Kog'Maw, but he just doesn't have enough front line. This is what I mean by you have to keep up, right? There was a couple matches that you saw there that I wasn't able to win. I lost 2 rounds this stage. It's because my Tristana AD didn't scale high enough in order to kill those boards. But some of these boards, even if they hit them, it doesn't matter. You get to a condition. If you tempo this comp correctly and you play it correctly, it doesn't matter what their board is. The Tristana will outscale everybody eventually, so long as your spot is good enough for the Tristana. Here I'm just rolling really aggressively for Corki. I don't really have anything else to roll for, and right now there's a lot of people still alive, so it thins out the 4-cost pool. So I'm just sending my gold here because I don't really care about going level 10. The only thing I would be rolling for is either Jace, that I replace the Warwick with a Jace because sometimes Warwick is a little bit like he's not that good, or I'm playing towards like finding another 6-cost, which I'd rather just roll all the time on 9 odds than level to 10. Just for the case of finding a 6-cost to spike my board a little bit more. This is just for more consistency. I'm still not sure if I'm going to win the game because I lost against the Rebel player, and I'm not sure if by the time I fight the Rebel player again, if I'm going to outscale them. But anyways, we're just chilling right now, pretty much. The Tristana is scaling aggressively, so there is a good chance that I go top 4 here. We just got to see how it plays out. Or sorry, I'm going top 4. There's a good chance that I win, is what I mean to say. Also, I got my second gold collector, so now I can move that onto the Corki. I was a little bit slow the turn before because I didn't put the gold collector on the Corki right away. I could have moved it off the Urgot. It's definitely better on Corki. But I have like giga items, right? I have IE gold collector on everybody. The whole board is executing. Everybody gets an execute. Here, ideally, I can also get another Corki item, which would be really, really fun, really, really nice. Let's see how this goes. I already have 3 tank items, so I'm not too worried about getting more tank items. Here I could also just put QSS on Corki. QSS is anti-stun. It's more of like a frontline item, but at the same time, QSS also gives attack speed, which Corki can make use of pretty well. Just gets a faster cast. So you have Giant Slayer. So I actually think I should put Guard Breaker or Giant Slayer on Tristana. Remember what I was saying before that a lot of times Giant Slayer is better on Tristana than Guinsoo, because Guinsoo doesn't work as well late game because the fights don't last long enough for Guinsoo to stack. So that's what I'm doing here, right? Guinsoo is good enough to get me to where I am now. Tristana's my main damage dealer, so I just give her more damage amp, right? The Giant Slayer makes it so that every unit that's above a certain HP threshold is going to take giga damage. As much as like the Guinsoo is cool that it stacks, it's not going to really affect too much in terms of the placement of, or sorry, it's not going to affect too much in terms of how this Tristana does damage, right? The Tristana, as you can see, this fight went a little bit longer. My Tristana ended up dying, that's why, because my Tristana was my main damage. But a lot of the fights, they're kind of like, the outcome of the fight is mostly determined, especially late game, in like the first 10 to 15 seconds of the fight. So if you have a Guinsoo user, unless you have some sort of like unkillable, impenetrable front line, similar to some of the Kog'Maw lines where you have multiple 3-star frontline units, the chances are the Guinsoo isn't going to ramp up to such a point where it's actually going to be effective on some of the units. There's some units that really want a Guinsoo no matter what. Stuff like Twitch, for example, and Kog'Maw, just because of the way that they scale with attack speed. But somebody like Tristana, the Guinsoo is more just to help her cast her ult. The auto attacks don't matter that much. They do a bunch of damage, don't get me wrong. But if you're not one-shotting with your ult at this point, the chances are that Tristana is going to get stuck on a frontline unit anyways and not going to come down to like the Guinsoo stacking up. Because Tristana isn't, like, she is an auto attacker in a way, but she's not like really an auto attacker. You know what I mean? She's not trying to kill off everybody with the auto attack, if that makes sense. Here, my Ezreal kind of hid in the corner, so he wasn't targeted, so I actually won that fight because the Corki Rockets killed off the last unit, the Morgana. So just enough damage. Thank God we got both of our gold collector cash outs, because if we didn't, we probably would have lost that fight. But anyways, now it's just rebuild econ, right? I rolled really aggressively to make sure that I hit this Corki, because I thought to myself, if I hit this Corki on this turn, I can make sure that I'm continuing to cash out my gold from the Warwick encounter, and then I'm additionally making sure that my Tristana continues to scale. But anyways, that's my logic. Here I didn't slam Archangels, but I could just slam Archangels. I get scrap value on the dude anyways. This fight I'm a little bit scared of because he has a Mel and he has like the full Dominator board. So as you can see there, what I did is I waited for the scrap item to proc, and then I put the component after, just to try and optimize the amount of stats that I get from all the components. It's not like that important, but it's just to make sure that I don't accidentally lose one of these fights that's a little bit scary. Ideally here we have a bunch of gold. We can go for like a Corki 3, or we can level to 10 and then hope that we hit another 6 cost. The 6 cost that we hit is going to be really dependent. You know, this is the part of the game that kind of sucks. I'm going to pause this right now. I hate these 6 costs. I'm really not a fan. I'm trying to find it in my heart to like make it like a thing where I like explain to you guys like, yeah, it's okay, you know, I like 6 costs, you know, like they're fun or whatever. Like, look at this shit. There's just a Victor on Carousel. Like, what do I do? Like, the game's just over, right? Whoever hits that Victor, it's just a strict advantage against me. It's just so miserable. Like, I already have a Warwick, right? I could take the Warwick and go for a Warwick too, but I think I'd rather just take an item, like a damage item for Warwick that I have already. Because, like, I just need to make sure now. I'm already, like, you know, some of these fights are very close, right? You can see that a lot of the fights are pretty close. It comes down to, like, my front line being dead and Corki or Tristana clutching up at the end. So it's not necessarily the best. Here I'm going to start rolling. I have 2 Corkis, so I'm just going to try and roll for as many Corkis as possible and maybe hit Corki 3. I could also roll for Rumble because I took a Rumble. I had a second copy of Rumble. So I'm down to roll for Rumble here. I'm just basically playing for placements. I don't really want to go 10. I could have technically taken Warwick off Carousel and go for Warwick 2, but I don't think Warwick 2 is like a feasible dream because even on level 10 odds, you have like a 1 or a 1.5% chance of finding it. This is the part that sucks though. This guy is Martial Law, Caitlyn with a Mel and a Victor. And I'm pretty sure he had the Mel before he had the Victor. So as you can see, I just get clean wiped by this guy. This guy, I actually almost killed. You know the reason why he's 1 life? Is because he had Mel already, and Mel saves you to 1 life. So not only did Mel save this guy, and then he found a Victor, and then he got another Victor off Carousel, and he's level 10. It's like, what am I supposed to do about that? So in my head, I'm thinking to myself, okay, maybe I hit Corky 3. So I'm just rolling really aggressively now for Corky. Just to make sure that I don't grief any more placements. I'm 1 life basically, right? I'm 10 HP. So I could, you know, theoretically I can beat the other guy and I could still win. But I want to just try and hit as many upgrades as possible. If I hit this Corky 3, I'm kind of down. I don't hit anything. You know, I rolled what, like 50 goldish. And then you see enough Corkies. It is what it is. I should win against this Kog'Maw player for sure. The Automata locked in, you know, they caged up the Warwick in the corner so that he only pops out when he goes into Blood Frenzy mode. It is a little bit of tech, sure. But I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. Because this Tristana should have scaled up enough to kill this guy off. As you can see, I just kill his front line. So I wasn't really worried about this. I'm also fighting Clone, which also makes a little bit of a difference. And yeah, so that guy's dead. The only person I have to worry about is this guy now. He's level 10 with a Mel and a Victor. So we'll see. He's rolling for Mel 2, Victor 2, which is basically an instant win. It's usually like a Victor 2 is on par with, like, you know, a 2-star 6 cost. It's on par with like a 3-star 4 cost. It's very rare and it's not supposed to happen. So if he hits, he hits. I don't think I can beat him anyways. My board relies on casting because I have all these executes. So if my front line already isn't super strong because I don't have Rel 3, Leona 3. So my front line is a little bit weaker in this variation that I'm playing. So there's a good chance that I'm unable to win these lobbies anyways. As you can see, I'm just rolling for Corky here. I think I skipped 1 Corky. Yeah, there. I just skipped a Corky, by the way. So that's like whatever. Warwick I don't think does anything, so I put Mel in instead. I skipped 1 Corky. So technically I would have had Corky 3 maybe. But it doesn't actually matter because the other guy hit Victor 2, if you didn't notice. So, you know. You can argue and say like, man, this guy sucks at rolling, which I get a lot. But, you know, it is what it is. He has Victor 2. It's basically like GG. There's pretty much nothing you can do. He's going to stun the board forever. And he's going to do like half their HP and damage when he stuns them. So, you know, if you look here, this fight's going to be very, very close. Because I actually was able to kill his front line. But then Victor just comes in and just cleans up and I just lose. So, you know, it is what it is. It ends up being a second. That's not to say that the comp that I'm playing isn't particularly strong. Obviously, I would have won against this guy if I was in a spot to hit Rel 3, Leona 3. Rel 3, Leona 3 would have probably given me enough front line to beat that guy a couple turns earlier. Just to let you guys know. So, I ended up not doing that, of course. Because I instead opted to level because I had the Alawi 2 that I stabilized around. Often it's really bait to keep rolling because if you spend all your gold on level 6 and then you low roll on the last unit, right? I high rolled the Tristana, I found the Urgot. If I low roll on the Rel or I low roll on the Leona, then I just burnt all my gold on level 6 instead of being able to push levels and put in the extra synergies that then spike my board significantly more, right? I wouldn't have Corky 2, Rumble 2, those type of things on my board. Now, what I could have done better is technically I could have taken the Warwick off of Carousel. And then I could have played around having the Warwick. Because I just got a Deathblade on Ezreal, which isn't that important. And then maybe I hit Warwick too and I'm up to par with the other guy. But his board is just way better than mine. He's level 10. He was in a better spot than me. He had the Mel, which saved him the 1 life. Because, like, that's why he got to 1 life. He would have been dead if he didn't have the Mel in the first place. So, you know, just a series of unfortunate events that didn't let me get first here. But at the same time, I did high roll a lot. So, you know, it averages out. When you play this Tristana comp, sometimes you just fall off, right? If people spike their board a lot faster than you and you don't have the AD to keep up with that, so you're still one-shotting units, just be warned, be prepared, right? It might look really broken 1 game. You might think it's really broken. You might play it again and be really broken 2 games in a row. And then the 3rd game you play, you go 8th, right? It's very, very temperamental. That's how I've played it, right? There's 1 game I went almost first, which was this one. I played it again a little bit later. I went 3rd. I played it again. I went 8th. You know, like it's not something you can force every single game, but it's a sometimes food. But it's a really, really strong sometimes food if you have a good spot for it, especially if you hit the artillerist or the rocketry augment that I was talking about before. But anyways, thank you for watching the video. Hopefully it was somewhat entertaining or somewhat interesting. Tomorrow will be the guide, I promise. I know I was supposed to do it today, but then I got, like, you know, I talked about it a little bit in the middle of the video. Hopefully that's usually where people stop watching my videos, so hopefully nobody saw it if that's the type of nonsense that offends you. But yeah. And then yeah, and then it's gonna be items and diminishing returns. I talked about it a little bit in these videos. Whenever I do VOD reviews, I talk about it while I decide and explain the itemizations that I'm going for. I'm gonna make a general guide for people that don't necessarily want to sit through the VOD review. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. See you guys.